Hi, I'm Stacy.
And I am Mark, and this is the Gurus and Game Changers podcast. Welcome, everybody. If you have ever looked at failure, you probably heard all the phrases. I'm going to fail forward. There's no such thing as failing, only learning. You're going to take lessons from it, all of that. But what you probably haven't heard is how the process of failing, of coming up short, can actually change you for the better if you embrace the process and not the outcome. I'm going to tell you what I mean. In 2022, our guest today, NoorJehan Tourte, I love this story. She woke up one day and said, I think I'm going to be a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. It's a childhood dream of hers.
We all say that.
Right, don't we all?
Do we all say that?
Sure. But she did it. She walked up to her husband. She said, guess what? And, broke the news. So, and that's a very public thing for someone who is a very private person. And she got further than she had expected. She got past the semifinals unexpectedly. And while she came up short on her childhood dream of becoming a cover model, what came from this experience was something even more unexpected. It ignited a fire in her to help other people experience the joy and experience the power that she felt going through that entire process. So now she's dedicated herself to helping people get excited about failing because they tried, excited about falling on your face over and over and over again to maximize your one go round on this planet, right? So hers is a message of mindset. It's a message of embracing the power to say, I'm going to go for it, even when your brain immediately says, you can't go. You have no business going for it, right? Doubt it immediately, because she knows that the going for it itself, that can be transformational. So in her words, wouldn't you rather stumble living life than squander it standing still? Absolutely love that.
Snaps.
Love that quote. So she's out there changing the game for everybody, and we are thrilled to have her here to share that mindset and her experiences with all of us. NoorJehan, nice to see you again.
Thanks for
nice
coming,
to talk to you again.
NoorJehan.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I know this is a long time in the making, but I'm just so excited to be talking to both of you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
We are too. Wait, let me address the elephant in the room.
Yeah, go. Wait, me?
No.
I've been dying.
There are no actual elephants. No. NoorJehan decided that she wanted to try out to be a Sports Illustrated model. So I want to find out from you why, how. Just give me a little bit of the story just to kind of, set the stage for what Mark was saying.
The story behind it truly was a childhood dream, or it still is, I guess. It really is something I think everyone has one of those. I remember distinctly sitting in my best friend's bedroom, and we're just reading our Teen Beat magazines, and I just looked over at her and I'm like, gosh, I just really want to be a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. And we both would just start laughing because there's no way on earth that, myself coming from a conservative Indian family background could have possibly imagined that. But I grew up in Southern California. I was, a complete Southern California girl, even though I was born to immigrant parents. I just had that, sunny SoCal 90s childhood, and Baywatch and Sports Illustrated are a big part of that.
Yeah.
And I did feel like other, right? Because of the color of my skin and knowing that I was different. I didn't feel marginalized. I just knew I was different. But then as I kept getting into my teen years and college, the expectation of following a certain lifestyle based on the Indian culture or my parents' faith just became so much more of a pressure. And it felt like, where does my Sports Illustrated childhood dream fit into that? And so I did retire that dream for a bit. And then, yes, at the end of 2021, I just resurrected it. And Mark's absolutely right. I just woke up the day after Christmas and I turned over to my husband and I said, hey, I got to tell you something. And I think he thought it was going to be really big news. And I said, I want to be a Sports
Really
swimsuit swimsuit model. So
Oh my God. Well, so
I'm going to go try to be one.
the day after Christmas, most of us are
Asleep.
are unbuttoning our pants,
Yeah.
because we've just eaten and drank too much and, celebrated so much. So where did this confidence come from? Obviously you're beautiful and, you knew that in your soul. And, so that was one thing. But to have that dream, how do you think that confidence came to you?
I thank you for saying that. I don't know that I've ever known in my soul that I'm beautiful, but I think it wasn't confidence that I felt the day after Christmas. It was contentment. And that's what pushed me, because I don't think I've experienced that kind of contentment. And I remember feeling as though I just need to remember this moment, because every struggle, every life's failure, every setback was me envisioning getting to this moment of contentment. And once I got there and felt that, I needed that. I think that it just resurged this desire that I got to go pursue everything that I want to, because, you know, I wanted to sustain that contentment. And I can't explain it, but, I don't want to lose this feeling of contentment that I finally attained after so many years. And part of what helps keep me content is knowing that I'm waking up every day and trying to pursue these dreams that I have. I don't care how lofty they sound, or I don't even care if I achieve them or not. I know that's can be very triggering for people. I don't care if I just care that I'm trying to.
Wow.
Yeah, that actually feeds right into something you said to me when we were talking, that you have a relentless pursuit of living. And that stayed with me as well. And it's not a relentless pursuit like many of us for success. It's just a relentless pursuit of living. And where did that come from? Is it stemming from how comfortable you were in your life, or did it stem from finally stepping into who you knew you would be?
The latter, I think. And I've said this before, that, and on different scales, right? When you feel like a choice is being taken away from you, or there's the threat of someone making a choice for you or taking something away from you, whether it's a person or a decision or something that's out of your control, that feeling is what drives me to relentlessly pursue life. Like when I look back and think, oh my gosh, there could have been choices I made that would have not been mine, but would have been done to please a community or please a person or please my parents. And the thought of giving up the freedom of my choices of life is why I continue to just like relentlessly pursue it. Yeah. If that hopefully makes sense.
What was that experience that you had that someone was trying to take something away from you?
And it's not any one person. I think it was the expectations of being born into an Indian family and a family that followed a very conservative faith.
Okay.
And I just knew early on that I had so much love and respect for the community, and I'm just unconditional love and respect for my parents as human beings and as my mom and dad. But I just couldn't find my footing in that conservative community. And it wasn't because I was critical of anything that they were thinking or doing. It was more so because I just felt like I just knew deep in my heart. I was like, this is not going to be, I'm not going to one day wake up and be happy living this kind of lifestyle. I'm not trying to rebel for the sake of, oh, this is a boring lifestyle. I just knew that I didn't, as we got older as girls, right? Once you hit puberty and once you became older, then all the restrictions, you can't date, you can't wear a certain type of outfit, you can't show your legs, you can't show your shoulders. Heaven, forbid we're showing our shoulders. And I respect it. I don't mean to make the joke about it. I'm sorry, but I could not wrap my head around ever waking up one day and being like, yes, I get this. I understand why and I just couldn't, right? Like, so, that's what it was. And I think back to, oh my gosh, if I gave in to everyone else, meaning my own peers too, telling me like, no, it's fine. Like we can just like do things behind our parents' backs, but we're all going to fall into step here and all want to be like this as we get older. I was like, I don't want to be like that when I'm older.
When you looked at your husband and said, I want to do this, what did he say?
He was like, okay, well, how does one go about becoming a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model? And that's what I had to explain to him. That. I always knew there was an open search competition. And that's, I think I should have given him more of that context. I wasn't planning to like move back to LA and try to get signed by a modeling agency. But what I was doing was hoping to re-enter their amateur search competition. It's like always like, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. If I hadn't pursued that particular year, I don't know that I would even be here talking to both of you, because that was the first year that they decided that they were going to take open submissions off of social media, because they were taking open, they used to do open casting calls in Miami. So girls were coming in person and just standing for hours to be seen. And then they moved it to Instagram. So then they were taking people's open submission videos through DMs.
Right.
I mean, I don't like how on earth would you ever get noticed?
Wow.
And this was the first year where they actually created their own app. And that's how the editors got to know you, is because you were continuing to post and give them content. And then ultimately you filmed a submission video and you put that on the app as well. As a private person who wasn't very active on public social media, if they hadn't done it that way, I don't know that I would have ever gotten noticed.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to what you were just talking about with your family, your upbringing, the demands on you as you were growing up, because you do talk about stepping into figuring out who you are, right? Figuring out who you are. And I know you felt you had different pressures. You're not American enough. You're not Muslim enough. You're not Indian enough. You're not all these things. Just not enough is the message that you got for so long. How did you get past that? Because look, people listening, people watching right now, they have their doubts. They have their obstacles. They're not enough. They're probably saying it to themselves. We all do. How do you get past that to say, you know what? I am exactly what I should be. And that from there, you get the confidence and the power to move forward. How did that work for you? And what advice do you have for them?
When I kept being told all of those things, I was very mindful of what direction that was pushing me in. Right.
Impact.
So because I definitely, I mean, if I think about who I ultimately ended up marrying, I believe I married my soulmate. When you're not feeling Indian enough or Muslim enough, I was dating white men. Right. And so I found that I was like seeking that place where being different was mesmerizing to someone versus, being different, being a reason to be outcast. And I think I was trying to figure out if my emotions were pushing me to a place where I was seeking, being enough for someone or something. How can I channel that into my strengths? So what I mean by that is that I started having to figure out, like, what am I good at and what do I like doing? Because I'm not going to be able to be all things to all people. I think that's the other part that comes with, that's like the subtext that comes from, or hopefully the positive subtext that comes from feeling like you're not enough. And then I suddenly got to a place of like, well, I just can't be all things to all people, clearly. And then I just started focusing and pursuing all the things that I like. So once I started, like little things, like I went to school and I wanted to do the right thing and follow the right educational path and then get the good, responsible, big girl job. And then one day I was there sitting at this new desk and I did it. And I'm like, okay, I didn't hate it, but I was like, okay, now what? That night I went and enrolled in screenwriting classes because I've always wanted to be a writer. And I started like just focus. And then, and this is all like in my late 20s and early 30s when I had finished school and I was on this corporate path. And then one day I realized, I said, I had been a singer for so much of my childhood life and I hadn't sang in 9 years because I'd moved to New York and just got caught up in business school and that world. And that's one day I just said, I'm going to start singing again. And I found a voice coach and I just started singing. And so all the things that I loved doing, I just pursued them, whether I was good at them or not. And that's what helped me overcome feeling like I'm not enough, because everyone has like things you like doing that you have interests in. And that's where my advice is that to overcome that feeling, just focus on doing the things that you enjoy doing, because likely the things you enjoy doing are things you're good at doing. And that positive feedback loop, when you like, when I can hit those high C's, like nothing feels better than that. I am not at all thinking I'm not enough. I'm thinking I'm damn good. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's like, just go find the things that you really enjoy doing and just do them, because then inherently you're probably doing them well or well enough that you feel good about yourself.
That's great advice.
That's fantastic advice. I hope everyone's listening. That's fantastic.
So you just mentioned the screenplay. You wanted to write one. I saw somewhere that you wanted to write one, I believe, about your grandfather. Was that right? Or
yes.
And was he a big influence or mentor to you?
Huge.
How so?
Huge influence. Like, I mean, if we're talking about gurus and game changers, he's both of them. He was both of them. He's my biggest inspiration, will always be. And we just had this wonderful bond because he was never first and foremost my grandfather. In my mind, he was always Naushad Ali, the most famous Indian music composer to have ever lived.
Wow.
And I'm not being biased. That's truly who he was.
Really? That's
And he
fascinating.
was Nana, my grandfather.
Wow.
So he was never just either one to me. And I think that created such a beautiful dynamic and relationship between us. So I've just always been inspired by his life, his drive, his talent. And I wanted to honor that by writing a biopic based on his life. And his life is very well known. I think everyone can Google and find out his trajectory of his career. But I wanted to write a story that felt more personal about a relationship between a granddaughter and a grandfather, and drawing parallels between, his life in the 1930s through the India independence and trying to become this music composer, and then maybe parallel to the life of a granddaughter who's trying to figure out her identity in the US.
I love this relationship that you have with your grandfather, and I would read this book or watch this movie or whatever it is. What do you think he would say about you now? Like if he saw all of your success and what you've been up to recently?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. It gave me chills. No one's ever asked me that. And maybe it goes back to, oh gosh, that's such a good question, Stacey. You stumped me. But the last thing my grandfather had said to me before he passed away, you know, was, and he had said this in Urdu, which is his native tongue. And so it was very, and he was a poet, right? Most music composers tend to be poets. So he was very poetic, very articulate. And he had said, for most people, life is extraordinarily simple, but for you, I wish a simply extraordinary life. And whether he said that to all my cousins, maybe. And I think that's what drove me. I would just go back to that thought. And I was like, gosh, 20 or 21 when he passed away. And I was so lost, and I was so not in a good place. And I felt like I had lost like my best friend, like just even though I was rebelling and doing all these things that were completely disappointing my parents and the community, I always thought I just had to, I'm like, well, I'm not disappointing him. Like he rebelled, so losing him and that being his words to me, I hope that he'd be saying that my life is simply extraordinary.
You at one point said life's not a movie, but everyone still deserves an act 3. What does that mean?
I love this. Thank you for asking. Right. In a screenplay structure, it's 3 acts, and you're following a hero, right? The structure of a movie, there's always the hero, and she or he is always on a journey. Right. And so you as the audience are meant to root for them on their journey. That's the whole intent, right, of a book and a screenplay. And when it's broken down by acts, at the end of Act 1, it's the first turning point. And at that first turning point, something bad has happened, a setback for your heroine.
Sure.
At the end of Act 2, it's an even worse setback. And it's like, oh my gosh, is she going to make it to her journey? Is she going to make it to the end? And then and they're called turning points, is at that turning point, that second turning point, when things look awful, like they're at the lowest of lows, Act 3 starts. And Act 3 is the beginning of her redemption, or the beginning of like all of the misunderstandings being rectified and clarified, and her finding herself, or coming to terms with who she is, or finding out who she is. And that turn is what gets her then to the end of her journey. And so by the top of Act 3, you are rooting for her. You may not have been rooting for her at the beginning, but you're rooting for her at top Act 3. And that's why I feel like everyone deserves an Act 3, and everyone deserves a sequel and a trilogy, because you're going to keep facing new journeys, and you just got it. Everyone deserves to get to Act 3, because Act 3 means even if you're flawed, even if you've made mistakes, you deserve that like ability to get redemption, and like then to go achieve whatever it is you had wanted. And I don't know, I just think we all deserve it. And when you find it, it feels good.
So what do you think is the biggest misconception of NoorJehan?
I feel like there's so many. No, I don't know if it's like a misconception. Well, there's one that's a misconception, I think. And then there's one that maybe it falls in that category, but it surprises people about me. Um, I think there's a misconception that I am so nice. That like a lot of people are like, she's just so nice.
Are you not nice?
Oh
Is that
gosh,
what you're
like,
saying? You're announcing that you're not nice.
Yeah, it's not crazy. I'm like, I'm not that nice. I know I am. I think if you asked me 10 or 15 years ago, I would have loved that. It's been like, oh my gosh, people think I'm so nice. Everyone likes me. And the reality is like the demands of trying to climb the corporate ladder and, being a female adult and being true to yourself and friendships changing and going through different phases of life. Like I am so my heart is so open to the people that I love and that are my people, and I will give everyone a fair shot when I meet them. But if something happens that rubs me the wrong way or that doesn't sit with my energy, I'm not so nice. I'm definitely, maybe I'm like nice. Maybe that's one misconception. I think people are like, oh, we can't imagine Nor being mean. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm mean, but if our energies aren't aligning, I would be lying to you if I said that people couldn't feel it.
At one point, I heard you reference that it was self-pity and self-righteousness are like the thieves of joy. Which is kind of a heady statement. So break that apart for us.
We always say that, right, like comparison is the thief of joy, right? And I mean, I work in advertising as a brand strategist. Like our entire job is to, compare our clients to their competitors and figure out how we can help them succeed. So comparison to me is something that I give people grace around. We are going to compare. That's how you make choices sometimes. I get that. I don't know if that's the thief of joy versus, what comparison does to you, right? If that sends you down a path of self-pity, that is what's stealing your joy, because you feel for yourself that you don't have what that person has, or that they got something that they don't deserve.
Yeah.
That's a thief of joy. But another thief of joy is if you compare yourself to someone and you start feeling real good about yourself, and that's how you make yourself feel better because you've compared yourself to someone else and that's your barometer. That's where that self-righteousness talk comes in, Mark and Stacy. And I think that ultimately becomes a thief of joy.
What would you say to people who compare themselves to you? Because quite obviously you kind of have it all, you know what I mean? And I think, and obviously, that is stealing their own joy. But what's the advice you give to people to find their own joy and not look at someone like you or compare themselves to anyone else?
What I believe in is a mindset. And it's one that I have to work on every day. Like, so that mindset of, don't compare yourself to others. I'm doing that every single day. So yes, please don't compare yourself to me. And I have to remind myself of the same thing. And this goes back to whatever energy that I might be giving off to you, Stacy, or Mark, or to anyone else, like, oh my gosh, like she clearly has it all, or she, okay, well, it's easy for her to say this. That all came from, going back to the very beginning question you had, that all came from, that energy is coming from the fact that like I focus on the things that I think I enjoy and that I have confidence in. And so that is where that comes from. Like I wouldn't be talking to other people about these things if I was pursuing things that I wasn't feeling confident about. But I love speaking. I love writing. I enjoy my singing, right? I enjoy being a brand strategist. So I'm just focusing on those things.
Right.
And if that in and of itself is building an aura of someone who's giving out joy and who's feeling a strong sense of self, then yeah, like, can I cuss here? Fuck yes. And that's what I'm happy. But I think that that's attainable for everyone because we're all, even if you don't think you're good at something, there's things you enjoy doing. So just keep doing those things, and whatever they may be. So that's, and I also think too, like, and this is maybe the other part too, if that's your reaction when hearing someone talk about empowerment, um, that your first thought might be, okay, well, I clearly don't have what you have, or I'm never going to have what you have. They might not be ready. They're not there yet. They're not ready for their life to start being their own, or they're not ready to stop, the negative self-talk or the self-pity. And I don't fault them. You got to be ready. Like I was not ready for a really long time.
What do you think your third act will be, NoorJehan?
I hope I'm living it. Like I truly believe, like, entering the Sports Illustrated Swim Search competition and being in that interview, that's where I had first said that whole comment about, everyone deserving their third act. And, you know, whether it was the day I woke up after Christmas in 2021, if that was the turning point and the start of my third act, I hope it just keeps continuing, because I love being here. But if I had to, like, talk to you about my sequel.
Okay. How about the sequel?
The sequel.
And I've actually never talked about this yet, but I think that next sequel is going to be about my family and, pursuing being a mom. And, we've talked about it for a while, and it's upon us and we're excited. And I think that's just going to be a whole new adventure. And I think that also is what the way for my husband and I, our path was, it's I don't actually think it's unconventional anymore, but it was the unconventional path of, like, pursuing IVF and going through that and figuring out what are ways that we can have children. And since we've been on that path for so long, we've had a lot of time to think about it. And I think that's also why I'm just relentlessly pursuing life, or also why I'm, figuring out what are the ways to protect my aura and, like, project that joy. Because if I'm projecting it, then I'm feeling it, because now I'm starting to think about, oh, everything that, like, we do or we are, some new little human's going to absorb that. So that'll be my next act, is figuring out how to truly pass this on to someone.
You have a protein bar company too, I noticed.
Yeah, we do.
Can tell me about that.
Yeah, it's called FGP Bar, and at fgpbar.com. But it's a plant-based protein bar, and that's our first baby. But when we got engaged, I decided to try a plant-based diet to get, healthier and feel better and feel good. And my husband, his roots are in the world of farming. So he comes from a farming background. So he noticed that I was eating all these protein bars that were not plant-based, yet I was on this plant-based diet for, like, lunch and dinner and breakfast. And he said, oh, let me, like, try to make you a plant-based bar. So I said, okay, go. If you want to make me a plant-based protein bar, I'm all for it. And that's when and then me, as a former marketer and then a strategist, we started looking at tried all the current plant-based protein bars that were on the market. We didn't like the taste of them. And that's where it started. We said, how can we make a plant-based protein bar that actually tastes good and that is very healthy? And that's where it started. And it's been a process, because we basically started that as a side project, but then that started growing into something we got really excited about. But it was also around the same time we were planning our wedding. So we were on these, like, parallel track of, like, okay, like, try to figure out how to be in the world of CPG while having our full-time jobs, while planning a wedding during the pandemic. So it's been a trip. Like, it is all those, like, funny stories about being entrepreneurs and what happens and what doesn't happen. They're so true. And it's actually brought us really close together, because we're living something, and we're so different. We are so different in personality. So to be in business together is really funny. It's comical. Like, even we laugh about how we approach things so differently. But it's awesome. It's a great bar. I'll send you guys some samples.
Yes,
I'd love for you guys to try them. Expect things to go wrong, because something will go wrong. And I think, like, you have to accept that that's the norm, so that it doesn't rattle you.
Yeah.
And I just truly, because like things rattle me. Like I run a little bit more high anxiety than he does. And, it's a perfect example. Like we're on a surf retreat for the holidays and trying to reset and find our zen before coming back to crazy corporate jobs. But we've got this side project. Suddenly our website got hacked into, and if we didn't figure out and shut down the bug, I was like a movie. If we didn't shut down the bug in 15 minutes, we would have been out $45,000.
Oh my gosh.
Because they got hacked into it and was like sending orders to our fulfillment center, and we'd have to be paying for that back. I mean, it's like, and we're like out of the country, and he's trying to do it on his phone because we're nowhere near our Airbnb, and it was very stressful, but it's kind of comical. But then at the same time, it was stressful, but you have to expect that things are going to go wrong.
Just reality,
and
right?
and then that way you just deal with the stress. You don't throw in the towel,
right.
But you just handle the stress.
Yeah. That is great advice.
So speaking of advice, I want you to finish the sentence. The best advice, based on where I've been, what I've seen, the best advice I can give to somebody, say in their 20s, who's on the verge of trying to figure out who they are, is.
Based on what I've seen and where I've been, my best advice to you is practice writing. Written communication is one of the most powerful tools that you can have in your pocket. I don't care what industry you're going into. I don't care what you're pursuing. If you're a creative, if you're in business, it doesn't matter. The ability to effectively communicate through writing. Again, I'm not just saying this because I'm a aspiring screenwriter. The ability to communicate through writing in emails and in your texts and in letters is so powerful. And I think that it changes the way people perceive you.
So NoorJehan, how can we help you? We have a bit of a platform, like we're getting thousands of views in these videos, and like, is there anything that you want to promote or put out in the world that we can help you get out there?
I want to reach more people, so hopefully people can reach out and say, hey, yeah, we'd love for you to talk. We'd love for you to come and connect with folks, and meaningful ways that we're all talking. And you can find me at my Instagram handle right now. And I was a very private person before the Sports Illustrated Swim Search competition. So I am venturing into something new and finding my voice and finding myself.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great.
Thank you, Noor.
Thank you so much.